Hello, welcome to the Reloading Podcast. Here on the Firearms Radio Network. I don't know what Jim's doing over there, but he's kind of being goofy. Anyway, so Jim, why don't you just sit and be quiet until you got your news to tell? Behave. All right? Just sit over and behave.
I have been scolded.
Yep. Nobody wants to see what you're showing off right now. There.
Well, please continue. I will take my turn and enjoy it.
So, Travis, what'd you do?
Okay, so Saturday I went and Saturday we drove 2.5 miles to go shoot a 3-gun competition.
Well, that's terrible to have to drive that far.
Yeah, it's not really fun. So I did that, had a good time. The following day, I went out to the range, shot a bunch of ammo, got frustrated. Just living the dream, I guess.
Travis, why did you get
Yes,
frustrated?
Spit it out.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay. So I went out to the range. I put a new scope on my kid's rifle. So I took my rifle and his out. Didn't even get to his rifle because I was having issues with mine. So we have some steel gongs set up at 220 yards, and I could not hit them at all. So I burned through 200 rounds, just getting furiously angry at the situation. Ran home, got some more ammo, went back to the range. I looked down at my scope, and I have an American Defense scope mount. One of the levers was completely undone. So as soon as I flipped it back over and locked it in the position, I was back just dead on again.
Oops.
And the weird thing is I also have my SBR. I've got a aim point comp M4 and aim point magnifier that's on an American Defense mount.
Mm-hmm.
So once I got everything dialed in with my rifle, I switched over to my kids, got his dialed in, switched over to my SBR, and the magnifier fell off. And I looked, and the locking mechanism on that mount's no good. It's not locking in. So the recoil alone was enough to throw the lever and knock my magnifier off. So not too happy with my American Defense stuff right now. If I had that mount come off on my rifle at a match, I would have been done for. Especially driving 2.5 miles, I would have been kind of ticked.
Yeah, that's a really long distance to have a equipment malfunction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the problem with those quick release mounts is they tend to cause problems. So, Rusty in the chat says 200 rounds to figure that out, huh?
Why? Where's this chat? I gotta go look at this chat for a minute. I'll be right back.
So, in that vein, so Rusty's talking about making comments about dumbass moves. Let me tell you what Rusty posted in the Reloading Podcast group today. Rusty said, "My story of how to be a dumbass. Get up, pour coffee, sit down and reload. Make sure dies are correctly adjusted. Load freshly prepped 30-06 case in RCBS press. Make sure dies are correctly adjusted again. With left hand pointer finger, reach up into the underside of the die to make sure the decapping pin is correctly adjusted. Simultaneously with the right hand, pull down on ram lever, running a nice shiny case into the left pointer finger, cutting a perfect half moon into the finger."
Oh.
But his suggestion is not to do that.
Well, it looks like, Travis, it looks like you're not the only one with a Doomcough moment.
I've done that exact same thing too, though.
So then they were sharing war wounds in the comment. So
I've done fairly similar with an RCBS primer pocket swager. Just the finger got someplace it wasn't supposed to, and the ram came up, and you can figure the rest of it out from there.
That's when you say Doomkopf.
I didn't say Doomkopf.
I'll bet not.
The Army language flowed freely out of the Rabelais garage. It was awesome.
So yeah, since I was gonna save that till later, but since Rusty was nice enough to give you crap, I figured I'd drop that right now. So yeah, we're gonna talk about some safety tonight and different things like that. And speaking of safety and different things like that, Phil, how's your week been? So yeah, we're gonna talk about some safety tonight.
My weekend was up and down. On the upside, I got to shoot a bunch of Travis's targets. That was a lot of fun. Good. I mean, I really appreciate the product. And then I was out shooting with my father, and he had a little bit of a scare. He dropped the striker on his Smith & Wesson Shield, and then dropped the gun because he blew the bottom of a case out while it was fully chambered in the handgun. Got some powder burns on his hand, and pretty much scared the hell out of himself. Locked the gun up solid. We couldn't get it open at the range. Just didn't have the tools or the equipment. So we, after making sure he was okay, which he was, he's shaken up, but he has no physical injuries. We took the gun back to my house, and I had to chuck it up in a vise and use a hammer and a brass drift to force the slide open. And in doing that, we used the extractor to rip what was left of a fired case out of the chamber. And it was an overpressure, a wild one. It blew the bottom of the case out right where the feed ramp is, so that portion of the chamber was unsupported. It completely wrecked the case head to the point where it won't hold a primer anymore. I mean, you can stick one up in there and it'll just fall right back out. And I've seen pierced primers before where there's like a little hole where the firing pin was, but I've never seen the entire back portion of a primer gone, vaporized. And that's what I saw this time. Not to mention some of the most impressive fire forming of a 9mm case web area around the chamber that I've ever seen before. So that happened. That wasn't fun. But my father wasn't injured. Nobody else got hurt. It was a learning experience. I mean, Jim and I talked about it, and Jim said the same thing. Anytime something like that happens and you walk away with your fingertips and your eyeballs, learn from it. But what my father determined from reviewing the most recent batch of fired ammo and the most recent batch of loaded ammo was that he had no indication that we were getting an overcharge situation. I had him throw 2 charges in a case just to see what it would look like if it was even possible, and 2 charges fills the case. So that's not what happened. But he found a couple of rounds that were loaded shorter than he had intended, and one in particular was 65 thousandths of an inch too short, which sent me down the rabbit hole trying to figure out, I mean, obviously it's not right. Obviously it's too short, but was that the culprit? So like I was explaining to the guys before the show started, what I did was I used a little bit of college physics and Boyle's law and the ideal gas law, and I built a spreadsheet to determine what a change in overall length was going to equate to in a percentage of pressure increase. It's nerdy, and I'll save you the long drawn explanation, but a 24% reduction in case volume for a 9mm in this case, from what he was intending to load to down to what we actually found one round loaded down to, which was 65 thousandths of an inch too short, results in about a 37% increase in pressure, which will turn a 30,000 PSI, lukewarm, middle of the road 9mm load into a 40,000 PSI screamer with the exact same powder charge. So
the one thing I want to talk about in this, since we're going down the math rabbit hole, is this linear or is it non-linear? The pressure increase. It's not. It sounds like if you decrease the volume by 1/4, you increase the pressure by over 1/3.
Yeah. It works out to be an inverse logarithmic function. So basically, what you end up with is a curve if you graph all these data points out. And what I did was I took 65 thousandths of an inch and I broke it up into 10 graduations. So 6.5 thousandths of an inch each, just make the math work, nice and round. But that first 6.5 thousandths of an inch decrease in overall length, the curve is still relatively flat. Like, it does increase the pressure, but it's just a little bit. The last 6.5 thousandths of an inch, the curve is almost vertical by that point, which makes sense if you think about it. I mean, if you take a fixed volume of any kind of gas and you seal the chamber, so you have a fixed volume of gas, and then you have a fixed volume of pressure. As you decrease the volume that this gas is trapped in, the pressure goes up. Well, think about if you take this volume of gas and decrease it down to zero, the pressure goes to infinity. 100% reduction in volume does not equate to 100% increase in pressure. It's an infinite increase in pressure because you're trying to compress. At a certain point, you get gas molecules crammed up against each other to the point where they won't move, and the vessel will burst at a certain point. But that's what we were looking at, and it was one of those situations where when my dad discovered he had one round loaded that short, I knew it was a problem, but I didn't know how big of a problem it was. I didn't know if that was the smoking gun to explain what had happened. So through crunching the numbers, I guess let that be a cautionary note to everybody when y'all start looking at. And in this case, it was an accident to load it that short. But for those of you that like to kind of experiment around or deviate from book data, let this be a cautionary tale. That first little bit of deviation is not as dramatic as the last one. And especially when you start loading to a shorter and shorter OAL, that last little bit you shorten it before the round pops, the pressure increases dramatically at that end of the scale. So, I mean, if anybody's interested, I could probably reproduce the data and post it's nerdy, I admit, but I thought it was a cautionary tale.
It's a good tale. The thing is too, if for the sake of full disclosure, at first I had advised Phil to not use his father's name in this situation, but we admit it when we make major mistakes like this. I admit here a while back, a long time ago, but still up in Pennsylvania, I screwed up 200 rounds of 45 ACP. I had to pull every round apart. I talked about it on the podcast. It's not a sin. It's a mistake. And excuse me. Phil, I would ask you to please advise your father to take his reloading dies apart and clean them up real good. Make sure there's no dirt, a ball of lubricant, anything, a gall, a scratch, whatever could affect the seating plunger in that die.
Well, and funny you mentioned that, since this batch of ammo was loaded before we took those dies apart and transplanted them from the Lee into his Dillon. So I know for a fact, because I was there, the dies were cleaned out, they were disassembled, they were reset. So, and I was on the press with him when we started reloading off that Dillon. I am anal retentive about measuring overall length and charges. So I know the ammunition that came off the Dillon's fine because I was right there when it got reloaded. I'm the one that set up the dies. But
okay, what have you gone back to check the dies now? Since they've been producing ammunition, have you checked the dies, or are you just checking OAL?
I mean, honestly, I don't think he's loaded a whole lot of 9mm since we got that thing set up.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him for being gun shy.
Oh, and look, that is exactly the term he's using. He's gun shy, and I've simultaneously tried to get him kind of over the hump. But at the same time, I'm not pushing because I understand. I mean, it scared the hell out of me because he's my dad. I don't want to see him go through the rest of his life missing a finger. But
the thing is, what you do in that case is you get back on that horse that you got yourself kicked off of, but go back to the beginning. Tear everything apart, set it up the way you know how, Do it like you did when you were first reloading.
Phil,
That's my advice to you. Go ahead, Travis.
this is your chance, buddy. You swoop in there and you tell him you need to get that 650 at your house. Tell him you will do all of his reloading. This is your chance, buddy.
Stay out of it, Travis. No, I mean, it's one of those situations where, like, I know how my dad is, and I know that he will overcome this, and he'll get back into the hobby that he's enjoyed so much these last few years. I just know that for him right now, that his confidence has been shaken. And, I mean, my hope would be that somebody out there that maybe has gotten a little bit careless, or somebody that doesn't keep their calipers on the bench all the time, hears this and thinks to themselves, I better go check. Because, I mean, I'm telling you, he fired quite a few loaded rounds of ammunition before this one popped, and every last one of them was fine. Not a pressure sign, not smashed primers, nothing. And then that one happened to be the one that got him. So, I mean, and I could tell, I mean, I couldn't tell you how many thousand rounds of 9mm the two of us have loaded and shot. I really couldn't at this point. I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, it could happen to a veteran reloader, it could happen to an amateur, it could happen to anybody. But when it happens, check yourself for shrapnel, and then, you know, go figure out what the problem was. And that's the end of this story. We wanted to figure out what the problem was, and I think we've comfortably determined that the overall length was the cause of the problem.
Well, again, though, you haven't determined what caused the overall length to dramatically change like that. 65 thousandths in handgun ammo is a lot, especially 9mm, because it's a considerably higher pressure round than 38 special.
Well, and because the inside volume of that case is so small to begin with, you start shortening that round, and I mean, you start talking about it's a bigger change than it would be in a longer cartridge. Put it
Right.
that way.
Don't forget
65 thousandths inch 38 special. It's a bigger cartridge.
Don't forget, too, the fact of the matter is that the head of that case is not a true cylinder. You'd have to break it. You'd have to break that all down. Whatever.
I know.
End of the story. We're hogging the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, Carl, good luck with this, buddy. I'm sure you'll get it. You know, I just hope this helps reinstill your confidence.
So, who wants to go next?
Well, since Mike seems to be, no, I'm not going next. Jason, did you do anything this week?
Last weekend, I went out shooting. Went shooting rifle with my buddy Dusty. Wow, big word. From the Air Force, and we were shooting at the 300, and I could not get on paper, and so I just stopped, and my
Was your mount loose too?
it was not loose.
Were your eyes failing you?
My eyes were not failing me.
I can help with that.
Go practice tying your shoes.
Well done.
So when he was done doing what he was doing, I asked him to spot for me, and ended up shooting at a rock on the berm because we weren't finding the shots. And so once he started spotting my shots, he had me make adjustments, and it seemed like the adjustments weren't what he was calling. So if he told me up 5 and right 3, and I would do that, and he'd tell me, like, same spot. Did you adjust it? And we did this a few times. And then finally I like over adjusted just to see what was going on. And all of a sudden the reticle broke loose and transferred up about 1.5 feet. So we figured it was a what's the name of the scope that has the thinner tube? It doesn't like to be torqued down that tight.
Loophole?
No, not the loophole. The one Jeremy talked me into buying.
Vortex?
Vortex, yeah.
Really?
So Vortex likes 15 inch-pounds of torque.
They don't like to be over torqued. I'll give you that. But if you actually smashed it, you can always send it back and they'll honor it.
I don't know that I've ruined this yet. And the fact is, I've known that their torque setting is 15 since I was playing with that 308 originally. So Dusty grabbed his torque wrench and he loosened the screws before I got to say, let's check and see what they were torqued at. So we don't know. But he retorqued them at 15 and it started working fine.
It's 15 inch-pounds, right?
Inch-pounds.
That ain't much.
No, it's not. And I have it on a LaRue one-piece scope mount. And I know LaRue calls for more, so they might be incompatible. I don't know. I didn't investigate it. I'm not going to knock anybody's stuff yet because I'm not sure what happened. But when I got home, I'm getting ready to go to Nevada next month on a long-range shoot, so I need all my stuff ready. So when I got home, I switched scopes out, and so I can get this one ready. So when I have time, I'll investigate that other scope to see if it was just over-torqued or if it has an issue or not.
Jason,
Yes.
may I make a suggestion to you, friend?
No. Yes, sir. What do you got?
One time when I was mounting a scope, I used clear nail polish in the lower ring. Just put a little stripe of clear nail polish in both lower rings. That scope never moved until we took it apart.
Did they have nail polish back in the Cretaceous period?
It was pitch or tar. We went down to the pits and got some tar.
One time back when I was younger.
You guys are trying to make Hook 'em bleep me, aren't you?
Actually, yes.
I forgot about that part.
Well, I gave you one, Michael.
So, in my breakaway coaster, worked all weekend. I tightened it back down. Didn't have any issues. So far, so good on that. Our friend Kenny Ortega PM'd me the other day about some more of those throw levers. So I'm going to check into those, see what they look like, see what their prices are. I'm just kind of playing around with them and see what's worth buying and what's not. That's all. But they throw levers are useful. I can tell you that. That's about it for me. How about Jim? Have you gone yet?
No, Mike. I think Mike wants to go next.
Yep.
Oh.
I went shoesting. So Friday night at work, I was talking to one of the people in payroll, and she says, "What you doing tomorrow?" I said, "I don't know why." She says, "Well, my husband needs a fifth for his trap team. Can you make it?" So I went out and shot a 100-bird challenge on Saturday, and actually did reasonably well considering I haven't shot trap in well over a year. So that was Saturday. Sunday I did a little bit of putzing around, made up some more 9mm. I was going to try and sneak out to the range, but that didn't happen. So still working on my brother's Jeep, which will not go away. So I would use somebody's suggestion, but unfortunately it's a little close to the house. Use a 5-gallon gas can on it. So,
But it can be towed, right?
Yeah, it could be. So, but I'm to the point now where we just got to actually stuff the stupid thing back in and bolt everything back together. So, it's been up to this point. So Jim.
Yes, sir.
What did you do, Jim?
Oh, not much. Let's see. Friday, I stopped in a local. Never mind. I'm not going to crucify him on the podcast. I bought some ammo. I was going to try to buy it on Wednesday. I got delayed. On Thursday, I tried to buy it. Got delayed. Friday, I got mad. Says, never mind. Don't worry about it. I went to the local gun shop I should have went to in the first place, and I bought 2 boxes of 40 S&W 165 grain HydroShock jacketed hollow point. 2 boxes of that good stuff. I think it's backwards. Anyway, reasoning was, I wanted to buy plain vanilla ammunition, nothing special, because it's for self-defense. I'm a big subscriber to the Mossad Ayub policy of, just use what everybody else does. But anyway, when I went in that particular shop, I was immediately recognized by the proprietor, and he started giving me hell. And he says, "Where the hell you been?" I says, "Why?" He says, I called you. I wanted you to come get your stuff. Get it out of my shop. I says, "I just came in for some ammo." And Stefan says, "Well, you're going to take more than that home today." Oh my God. Back in January, I won 2 suppressors. One is an Osprey Micro made by Silencer Co. I believe that's the information there. You'll probably find a serial number in that. No, I'm sure. And the other one is a Silencer Co. Saker SRA. No, ASR. I'm sorry. Reading lettering backwards. Anyway, I won 2 suppressors, guys, and the paperwork came back from the ATF. That's what I was doing, fooling around at the beginning of the show when I was holding up my suppressor. This is a 22 caliber suppressor. I'm going to guess. Be good, Travis. Yeah, that's a 22 caliber suppressor. The bore in there, I guess the hole is probably 230 thousandths or something like that. And it's made for 22 rimfire only. That's the other end of it, where you fit it onto the rifle and all that. And there's a couple pieces and wrenches and stuff like that where you fit it onto your rifle or your handgun. But I think what this calls for, Jason, we are always telling people, 7 months, 7 months turnaround on the paperwork. We are always telling people to buy, when they buy dies or buy ammunition of the wrong caliber, they have to buy a gun to match the caliber, right?
Yep.
Well, I think in this case, what Jim's going to have to do is buy a Ruger 1022 with an extra threaded barrel.
Nice.
Because as I understand it, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, it's really, really easy to change the barrel on a Ruger 1022. Not like the old Charter Arms. Travis is nodding his head. He's confirming it. But not the old Charter Arms AR7, where you just unthread everything, unthread the barrel from the action and all that. But I believe you have to take and drive a pin out, and that's just about all you have to do to change barrels. Travis, am I wrong?
If I remember right, there's like one little bolt holds it on. There's like a little wedge. It's kind of just wedges in there. It's super easy. Do it in like 10 minutes.
You got a wedge stuck where?
Family-friendly show, guys.
Jim, how in the world does a guy forget that he won 2 suppressors?
Right?
Well, when you say the BA, yeah, my tang is tungled, that's for sure. When the BATFE, yes, takes 7 months, things like this don't come to the forefront of your mind. And the other silencer I won is a 30 caliber silencer. This one here is set up for my rifle already. This hole right here is 1/2 inch 28. No, it's not. It's 5/8 28. Anyway, the point is, It'll fit my 280 AI. But what impressed me is with this 30 caliber suppressor, 30 caliber hole, all that jazz. But this end here has got a fitting in the back end of it. It locks directly onto this barrel adapter. And I have never seen such excellent, good close machining as I have in this Silencer Co. Suppressor. And I've just not been on the rifle yet at all. I just, am so impressed by the fact that you just thread this rascal right on, just like in the movies. But what's interesting is there's a lock ring right there. You turn that lock ring, and you can't get that nut that barrel adapter in there. You couldn't get that out for love nor money. Undo the lock ring, and the unthreads right out.
Yeah, just be careful about carbon buildup, or it'll be a real pain in the butt.
Yeah, when I see the matter of fact. Now I know what this one wrench is for.
It's for to take the cap off so you can switch out. You can switch that cap, Jim, to you can put a different caliber like a 22.
Right. See the pins, guys, I'm showing you? They fit right in those holes. Is that focusing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you just put that together like so, and it'll unthread that. And I just realized, Travis, I could order a 280 adapter or whatever I want, to make it a little closer fit. We'll try it as is. But I was reading somewhere, in my weekly thread in the reloading room, I was reading from a friend out of Minnesota that on his rifle or handgun, I'm not sure which, that the suppressor changes the point of impact.
Pretty much every firearm you throw a suppressor on will change point of impact.
Well, the point is,
you will tighten up your groups is what you'll do. You'll change your impact, but you'll tighten up your groups.
Sometimes.
Yeah, because less blast and all that. This rascal weighs at least 24 ounces, at least 1.5 pounds right here. And you add that onto the end of the barrel, you can see what it's going to do. But anyway, that's what I did in in Guns and Reloading for the week.
Well, congratulations, Jim. That is one of the most impressive weekend guns I've heard. I am truly impressed.
Thank you. And then I forgot to mention, on Sunday, I went shooting at a local range here called Kids Place. Let's give them a plug.
Wait, what? You did what?
I went shooting. Shooting.
Holy crap, the world's coming to an end.
You bet your ass it is.
But he hasn't reloaded yet, so.
Yeah. I reloaded my magazine several times.
That doesn't count, and you know
it. The hell it doesn't. It counts just fine.
You did not
I'm the one doing the
cartridge.
counting. Well, I tell you what, you ought to see my shed. But that's another story. But anyway, yeah, the other thing is, too, about these suppressors, I forgot to mention in the beginning, but I mentioned it back in January, is they sent the money out for the tax stamps. I didn't have to pay for the tax stamps. That was part of the prize.
That's amazing.
The 2 suppressors plus 2 tax stamps. And the tax stamps are out in the vehicle. I was going to take and have the tax stamp paperwork. I believe it's BATFE Form 1 with the tax stamp. I believe it's out in the truck, and I was going to have a photocopy, but because I ran late today, I did not get my paperwork photocopied. And what I intend to do is reduce it and laminate it, reduce it down to credit card size, so that way I can keep a copy in my wallet at all times of the paperwork, because I was told that I am required by law, anytime I take these suppressors out to deploy them, that I have to, in case I get approached by law enforcement, I have to have that paperwork available.
But it has to be readable, so I don't know if you're going to be able to reduce it that far.
I've seen the reduction. It is legible.
Okay, cool. You know what this means also, Jim?
What's that, Mike?
Whenever you finally get around to reloading, you're our new guinea pig for subsonic loads. So you're going to have to get something in 300 blackout.
Never happen. Never happen. Not unless I win an upper. Well, I would consider, yeah, that's not a bad idea, Mike. Actually, I would consider borrowing somebody's upper.
What do you want to do with 300 blackout?
Well, he's got that nice suppressor, so he needs to start making some subsonic loads.
That's a thought, but I'll never buy it.
Well, there you go.
Anyway, yeah, that's so I'm just totally thrilled, and flabbergasted, and speechless, and this is all out of. I've got to plug this shop. This is by. I won this back in December, January. I happened to go into a gun shop on Lee Avenue in Sanford, North Carolina, and the name of the shop is Gun Locker. And I believe their link is gunlockernc.com. I believe. I could be wrong. But anyway, the name of the shop is Gun Locker on Lee Avenue in Sanford, North Carolina. And I walked in there and they asked me if I wanted to buy a ticket. And I says, he says, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You buy 3, I'll let you have it for $50. I bought the last 3 tickets. Yeah, I hear you. I bought the last 3 tickets, and the day I happened to go in to pick up my paperwork to carry it around to the sheriff's office to get all the paperwork in order to comply with the law, there was a guy in there, a young gentleman, and he didn't say anything, but he also happened to be there the day I picked up the suppressors. Then he told me that. Then he told me that he was there the same day. He recognized me, of course, but I had never seen the kid before in my life. But it seems like a good guy. He wound up joining a reloading room because of me. And I'm sure we can interest him in the podcast. But yeah, Jim went shooting. Oh, now Jim went shooting at Kid's place, and it's interesting because the first thing I did was I had some old ammunition, at least 5 to 7 years old, that had been in my gun. I'd been moving it around or whatever, and well, I knew it was getting old, and I had replaced it with this fresh. Was going to replace it with a fresh ammunition. So out there they had some steel targets, just like yours, Travis, except they're deployed and used every day, and I decided to just empty my handgun. I had to empty my handgun with the factory ammunition, 10 rounds, and I decided to just burn them up. Pop, 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 pop. Clang, 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 10 times. I'm so very surprised that I still have it in my hands and know to pay attention to where I shoot.
That's good.
Yep. And my interesting tidbit, I'm shooting those 145 grains cast semi-wad cutters are lighter than the 160 grains, 175 grains, and all that mold I sold you, Mike.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he said that, Jim, it sounds like your factory ammunition is actually milder than your hand loads. And I said to him, I says, if that's the case, the reason why I run max load, it's in the book. Whatever I loaded, it's in the book. I wouldn't go out of the book. But whatever it is, I don't want factory ammunition to surprise me. And I have to admit, it did seem a bit tamer than my reloads. And the final detail about my shooting excursion, when I went to clean the gun, 15 minutes, I was done. You know, I'm shooting max loads, lead bullets, the whole 9 yards. And everything ran great. Everything ran great.
Awesome.
I loved it. It's nice to be back in the saddle, even if it is for just a little bit.
Yep. So I wanted to take time to thank Sean and the gang over at Firearms Radio Network for giving us a place to host the shenanigans, and Jake and Ryan over at Patriot Patch Company, patriotpatch.co, for being the official bandwidth sponsor of the show. So, next up, we have an email from a listener who actually is in the chat tonight also. And that's Abius Corpus. and you can guess by the name that, yes, they are a SAS member. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about brass shot shells because somebody asked a question, and I mistakenly assumed that they were prevalent in use in SAS, and I assumed incorrectly. So he set me straight. So here's his email. I'm a regular listener to the podcast. In the last episode, there was a brief mention of brass shot shells being used for cowboy action shooting, particularly for black powder loads. I've been shooting cowboy action for 8 years, and 2 or 3 of those years I've been shooting in a frontier cartridge category, which requires the use of black powder or black powder substitute. Most cowboy shooters roll their own. This is particularly used for black powder shooters since commercial black powder and ammunition is very expensive. Yeah, go price it once. You'll be like, wait, what? Brass shot shells are cool looking. Remember the shot shell bandolier in the remake of 310 to Yuma? True, very true. Very nice looking. Very attention grabbing. You might be surprised to learn that almost no competitive shooters use them. First, they're expensive, especially when you consider that the shooter or the timer operator are going to step on them and ruin them. Second, they're a lot more trouble to load than a standard plastic hull. True, a plastic hull won't stand up to more than a couple BP loads. They tend to get kind of crispy from the heat. So what? So what? Buy or scrounge a garbage bag full of hulls, load them and toss them when they get too burned up. Very true. Most of your ranges that you go to, your trap ranges, you can find hundreds and hundreds of hulls in the barrels because of the fact that most people buy the cheap stuff to shoot and not your AA's and your trap clubs and your STSs. So most of it's just the cheap, 100 packs that people shoot. And so they're perfect to pick up and reload. It says the idea of using fiber wads and spacers and cards just to load a shot shell, no thank you. And what he means by that with the brass, you can't just use your standard plastic wad like you normally would as well because it doesn't work as nicely. So, or in some cases, depending on what you're trying to use, it won't work at all. So he says the idea of using fiber wads and spacers and cards just to shoot a load in a shot shell, no thank you. We shoot 25 to 30 shot shells in a 6-stage monthly match. Second, cowboy action shooter needs a hull that will shuck easily from the chambers of the shotgun because SAS rules mandate extractors only, no automatic ejectors in a side-by-side shotgun. A smooth-sided quality hull usually works best. Okay, you can shoot an 1897 pump or an 1887 lever action, but I would not use a heavy brass hull in a 97. No experience with the 87 to know how it like a brass hull. Thanks for all your efforts on the podcast, Habeas Corpus. So, and he did include some videos. I'll send those over to the Facebook page. He says his shotgun shells are Remington STS hulls, 7/8 ounce shot, in a gray clay buster wad over a modest charge of APP powder. Plenty of smoke, and it takes targets on every time. And then his rifle ammo is 38 special, a case full of APP and 158 grain bullet. Same bullet in the revolvers, but those are sitting on 357 Magnum case full of GoX black powder. All cartridges were black powder cartridges at least till the 1890s. Modern revolvers and lever action rifles work great with black powder. It adds some extra fun factor to any shooting session. And it does. There's something cool about that. So, excuse me. And he posted there was a bit of on the SAS forum about brass holes that same day we were having this conversation. So, and then I was telling him about my 9mm experience with black powder that from Matt from Geek Sketches and Guns from the bullpup shoot. So we were talking back and forth about that. He said that one of his Wild Bunch matches, a shooter from North. Oh, that got cut off. A shooter showed up with black powder ammo in a 1911. So, and he had the load calculated, so it ran like a clock. Obviously, 45 uses lower pressure than a 9, so that was kind of the way that worked. So, oh, sorry, North Georgia is what it was. So, and he was just telling in the chat that he just finished a 10-stage state match last weekend. So. Yeah, and he says too much darn smoke when it's humid. From that'd be the only drawback to the black powder. So, and they're they're talking about 300 blackouts and all sorts of fun stuff. So wanted to mention that. So keep getting more entries. So that's awesome. We want to thank everybody for that. And just want to thank everybody for all the different comments and stuff that they're giving us. We're getting a lot of positive feedback when we get the email messages coming in. So it's awesome. We thank everybody for the positive feedback. So, all right. So Jim, did you want to do the cartridge corner, or did you want me to tonight? Did Jim freeze? Maybe.
I muted myself. Sorry.
Aha.
Anyway,
So the 257 Roberts, we had a request for this. Actually, a couple of requests. And so unfortunately, Jim has been busy, so obviously shooting and stuff. So he didn't get the chance to delve in as much as he normally does for research. I did get a chance to do a little bit. I found a new website that I really hadn't bothered to look at before, and that was ballisticstudies.com. And one of the nice things that they do is they give different information about some cartridges and stuff. I didn't spend a lot of time, but it's got kind of your basic information. I will put the specs and stuff in the show notes. But history of the 257 Roberts dates back to the 20s. And like a lot of the newer cartridges, it was a wildcat. A gentleman by the name of Ned Roberts, I know, who to funk it, began to experiment with 257 caliber. Suggested that Charles Newton persuaded Roberts to settle on the 7x57 case design. And close friend Colonel Townsend Whalen, that may sound familiar to others, suggested a 15-degree shoulder. Unfortunately, exact details of the time are sketchy. What is known is Roberts did indeed adopt the 7x57 case, changed the shoulder angle to a gentle 15 degrees, and opted for an extremely long neck.
did I hear the name Townsend Whalen?
Yes, you did.
That would be of the 35 Whalen cartridge fame, correct?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's I've noticed as we're doing the cartridge corner on some of these that really come out of Wildcats is there's a lot of these guys that spent a lot of time talking together. So, the Wildcat community, even though they didn't have the communication that we do nowadays, was still pretty tight knit. So, Townsend Whalen apparently named the new cartridge the 25 Roberts, and Adolf Nieder built the first rifles in 28. Following its release, Remington Arms Company saw great potential in 25 Roberts. Remington utilized the basic concept of a 25 caliber 7x57, but chose to simply neck down the 7x57 case with no other change. Since Roberts had devoted so much of his time developing the cartridge, Remington, out of respect, named it the 257 Roberts. So yes, there is a 25 Roberts and a 257 Roberts. The one thing I didn't take time to find out is if the 25 is still around. So I suspect there is rifles out there somewhere that somebody has in a safe somewhere that their great grandpa or or some of their family members gave them that is, in 25 versus 257. The differences would be the shoulder angle and that there's an extremely long neck on the 25 versus the 257 was just a neck down 7x57 Mauser case. So Remington officially released it to mainstream hunters in 34. Unfortunately, they, as Remington tends to do sometimes, and a lot of times what happens when they first launch new cartridges, you see this with Remington and Winchester throughout their histories, they made a poor bullet choice. They put 117 grain round nose in it. And so the COAL was very short. It was an underpowered cartridge, producing velocities in order of 2650, which shed velocity quickly because of the round nose design. In this configuration, Roberts offered nothing over the 250-3000, the Savage cartridge of the time, which was a great whitetail cartridge. So, it was, there wasn't anything as such a thing as a short action rifle at that time. Everything was long action. Everything was based off the Mauser cartridges. 308 doesn't come out for another 20 years. So there really wasn't anything as a short action. So it was still common for handloaders to stick to factory designated COALs. However, those who were more keen soon learned that Roberts could be loaded long and fast. Set up this way and using hand loads, the Roberts was able to fire a 100 grain bullet at 3,000 feet per second and a 117 grain Spitzer at 2,800. Nevertheless, majority of hunters, especially those outside of the U.S., Roberts was viewed as a bad idea. So it was further compounded when the Roberts was later housed in a short action rifle, whether factory or custom. So what kind of really killed it off? Well, not killed it off because it still exists today and it's still a popular cartridge. But what really kind of helped throw it into further decline is in 55 when the 243 Winchester came out. That is probably its most common competition when you talk about for whitetail hunting. Is ballistically they're kind of similar. So the nice thing is 257 Roberts does have a lower recoil, like the 243. So now one of the things that kind of helped revived it is in the late 80s, Winchester reintroduced the 257 into the 70 XTR line. So it was housed in a long action, long magazine rifle offering reloaders plenty of flexibility. So, and unfortunately though, what was more popular to do with those was to ream the cartridge or the chamber out to 25-06. So, and so the Roberts kind of, it's one of those where it really depends on what you're going to stuff it into. If you're going to stuff it into a short action, it's kind of handicapped. If you're going to put it into long action, you can kind of have a little bit more to play. So what type of bullet you're loading. But it did give Weatherby the inspiration for the 257 Weatherby because he found out the bullet was really nice. It just wasn't moving fast enough. So like what he did with everything else, he threw a supercharger on it. He took a huge case, stuffed the same 257 bullet into it, and moved it quite a bit faster. So, it is nicknamed as the Bob because it's Roberts. So, it's kind of a mid-range cartridge. It's one of those you either love or hate. And those who love it and refuse to give it up. Those who hate it focus on all of its shortcomings instead of what it can be good for and really bash the crap out of it. So that's some cool information on that. And I'll put some details and stuff, and I'll put a link to the ballistic studies article also, because we always want to make sure we give credit when we use other sources. So I'll put that in the show notes. So does anybody have a 257 Roberts? No.
Nope.
How about anybody in the chat? So there is a lot of, so we have a vote for a 3840 for the future cartridge. So we have all sorts of fun cartridges. I mean, we could spend months just on the black powder cartridges that are still in use. But yeah, it's one of those that, like I said, it's a love-hate relationship. So Rusty, Mr. I like to put brass through my finger, Shackelford, says he does have a 257 Roberts. So it'll be fun to see what he loads for his. So Rusty, we'll have to have you on and give us details about that, or you can just post in the chat and we can share it later. Okay, so we already covered number one. So since Rusty was nice enough to provide us with that from earlier. Next up is Jason posted, during the cartridge sizing phase, I'm noticing some inconsistencies with the result. Each pull on a 30-year-old RCBS manual loader, my sizes vary from 1 to 6 thousandths from the desired length. I can never seem to get the length to be consistent after each throw. This is happening with both pistol and rifle, old and new dies. After a decade of having these same results, I can say I've never had an issue with the range of cartridge feeding. So is this normal for a manual loader? Should I have any concerns, or is this acceptable and others see the same results? Gentlemen, do you
Perfectly
always...
normal.
Yeah. Jim?
Sorry.
I have to read these because I was busy doing something else.
Sure.
I'll pass for the moment.
Okay. Jason? Are all your cartridges exactly the same length every single time?
No.
No,
They're
mine
not
aren't either.
perfect. But I will say, make sure your die is tight, square.
Uh-huh.
That's something to help get rid of the slop. There's a lot of slop in those threads.
Yeah, so I'm not understanding exactly what his question is, because I think Jason's thinking the same thing. Brass grows when you shoot it. So after you size it, you're not going to be consistent after you resize. So you need to trim all your brass. So I kind of fell into see exactly what he's questioning here.
So what he's saying, and I'm assuming some of this, but what he's saying is that they start out the same length and they're different after. So
bullet seat. So he's including the bullet.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right.
When he's
So
complete.
after the bullet, then the fact that your brass isn't exactly the same wouldn't matter at that point.
No.
So
because it's happening with everything where he's having some inconsistencies. So, and that's the nature of the press,
yeah.
especially with an older press. But even, unless you're going to spend the money to get a seriously good single stage, like a Redding or a Forester, or one of the I think Wilson makes a couple, and then there's some other
coax.
Yeah, the Forster coax. Then there's, you get into your bench rest stuff where you're talking $700, $800, $900 for a single stage press. You're going to get some slap. You're going to get slap from your shell holder. So just kind of all the places you're going to get slap. You're going to get slap in the shell holder from where the brass is sitting in the shell holder. You're going to get slap when you set up the die sometimes. And even if you make sure it's tight, it may not necessarily be the exact. It may feel tight and it may not necessarily be tight, but you can't wiggle it here. But when you run the ram up, it moves. Also, your travel may not necessarily be exactly the same every single time.
And pulling the lever consistently is a big key too.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he's got a couple things. He's, like you just said, a little bit of slop in some stuff, possibly inconsistent pulls on the handles, not smooth exactly every pull. And then you also got your length, especially with like an open tip match bullet. If you're measuring your cartridge overall, the tip is what you're measuring off of when you're using your calipers, when you should be going off of what's that called, Jason, that your Hornady bullet comparator to go off of the ogive. That right there will give you more accurate measurement than going off of the cartridge, the tip, your overall length. Because the tips might not be exact same length. So every time you measure that, you're thinking everything's changing on you when
Yep.
you need to be measuring off the ogive to get your accurate measurement. If the
That's a
ogive, you're getting a different measurement, then yeah, there's something wrong with your die.
Yeah, well, if you want to prove that to yourself, go grab 5 rifle bullets out of any box you want, as long as they're all the same, theoretically the same bullet. Measure them from the bottom of the bullet to the tip. Tell me what you find out. You're going to find a variance just in the length of the bullet. So, I mean, obviously, the tip, if you're measuring from the tip down to the bottom of the loaded cartridge, if the length of the bullet's different, then you're going to get a variance there no matter what.
And it's a lot worse when you're using like a hollow point.
Well, yeah, I was
Like
just going to say, I mean, looking at like Sierra Match Kings, because they are that, because of the way the jacket is drawn, it's kind of drawn upside down, and the open end of the jacket is what forms the tip. You can look at them and see that. In some cases, they're jagged or they're wavy. I mean, they're great bullets. I shoot them, and they're very accurate, but you can look at them and see that they're a little bit different. That doesn't take a set of calipers to figure out.
Yeah, that Hornady comparator, that's a nice tool, right, Jason? I've been wanting to go pick one up.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yes, they are.
And it's like $27 for a set.
Sounds about right. I don't really recall. Probably nothing for a man of your stature.
Right? So, yeah, a lot of it is definitely how you're measuring it. Because the other thing is the nice thing about the comparator is you're going to get that set up consistently every single time. And when you're trying to put it on the tip, you may not have it sitting in the caliper just right. You may not put the same pressure on the caliper every time, and you're not talking about much at all.
Yeah, just the tip.
Right. So, whereas when you get the comparator set, it's going to be setting on the ogive, and it's pretty consistent, and you can put a consistent pressure on every time because you're not going to be worried about damaging the tip.
Yeah, years ago when I was loading for the 243, I was using, I believe, some Barnes varmeter bullets, and they're a really open hollow point, and I was chasing the length until I realized that what I was doing was not right, because the length isn't actually changing, just the tip itself is varying. When you, like, say you go off the ogive, you're probably right on, whoever asking that question, but you need to get some kind of a tool to check that.
And Hornady is not the only one that has a comparator setup. There's other ones that are out there.
Forrester has one called the Data Dial Kit.
Yep. So, and you can get basic ones. You can get really fancy ones. It all depends on, like everything else, how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go.
And don't trip on the length of your bullets. Trip on your data.
Yeah.
Like your speeds. What's your variance in your speeds and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, it may not make a difference. So next up, Derek posted, what is your starting load for 250 grain Keith style semi-wad cutters using Alliant 2400? Alliant calls for 20 grains, and if I deduct 10% as a starting load, that would be 18 grains. Seems a little hot to me for cast.
I'm laughing because 20 grain seems rather mild to me.
I can't really give a direct comparison because I've got the Hornady book in front of me, and Hornady does not list that powder for a cast bullet anywhere close to that weight range.
In 44 mag?
In 44 mag.
Okay, the reason why I'm chuckling is because I've done something evil with 44 Magnum. And I do believe this is not a recipe to be given out. Mike, if you want me to
just
stop,
don't give the
say so.
Yeah, just don't give the recipe. Give an
Okay.
idea, but don't give the recipe.
It's it was a bit above the posted what the gentleman in question. It was a bit above his charge. Oh yeah, as I said, 20 grains under a 250 grain key style semi-wad cutter. That seems a little mild to me.
Well, I mean, I could tell you that based on the Hornady data for a 240 grain jacketed,
Yes, please.
17.4 is the start charge.
What's the max charge on that, Phil?
For a Lion 2400, 21.2. Now that's a 240 grain jacketed, but it's the best comparison I can give you.
Right. That's close enough. Even that grain weight on the powder charge is a little milder than what I'm talking about. I think I found it in the Lyman book. I
guess
don't
what
have
I'm
my
saying
Lyman
is
book handy.
18 doesn't look that hot, but this isn't a cartridge I'm super familiar with, so.
Well, when you handle that one, you have to be prepared to deal with recoil.
Oh, I've shot it before. I like the recoil. I just can't quite afford one yet.
Jason, do you own a 44 Magnum?
I might.
Okay. What's your recipe? Do you know?
It involves H110.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you what the charge was. I'd have to look it up.
Good enough.
So I got my Lyman book out here. So what was the information again?
250 grain key semi-wad cutter. Lyman mold number 429, 421. Or 431, my mistake. $429, $421. I was right the first time.
And it's a Liant 2400 powder.
And this does not have a lion in it. Let me get out my other Lyman book.
Alliant website says 20.
For
Now,
max?
When I pull up for the rest of the 44 mag loadings with 2400, we're looking at a 240 grain spear, Goldet hollow point, uses 21 grains. And that's kind of the closest weight wise. So then you go into a 225 grain semi-wad cutter cast, and it says 21 grains of powder. But
So on the Lyman cast for that bullet, 19.2 is the max. But it also shows the best potential for accuracy is the 2400 at 17.4.
Okay. I'm searching. I'm using my account on loaddata.com, and they all list considerably milder charges than I've used of 2400. Yeah, the 429, 421, the max load in this one is 21 grains of 2400. Velocity was 1377. And this is, like I said, this is out of loaddata.com. If you need, Mike, I could come up with a screenshot.
no.
Okay. Well, it looks like 21 grains is it.
I'm just checking a couple other options that I have. Excuse me.
I think handloads.com would probably have that one too. Yeah, it's funny how popular the 44 Magnum cartridge is to reload and to shoot among serious recoil buffs.
It's a fun cartridge.
Yes, sir.
Jim, do you have any idea where you got your recipe from?
Yeah, I know exactly where I got it from.
Was it book?
No,
Didn't you just say you never went off book?
no, I didn't say
Yes.
that.
Yes, you did.
I said I didn't reload that 40 ammunition off the book. We all stray from the ranch once in a while.
I experiment a tad.
A tad? Yeah, we all do. Yeah, you've heard me tell the story about stuffing as much 2400 powder into a 357 case that I could stuff into it, and then tamping a 200 grain bullet down on top of that and crimping the snot out of it for my Thompson Center Contender. I don't know what the velocity was because that bullet never came back. Can't imagine why.
Yep.
I couldn't get another kernel of powder in that cartridge. Can't imagine why. Yeah, we all experiment once in a while. Even you guys, Phil.
Yep.
That would be an interesting aspect. We talked to Chris Hogden about the history of 2400.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That's an Alliant powder.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, never mind. I'm mixing apples and oranges, and that wouldn't be right.
I was
'Cause
very
they-
confused there for a second.
Yeah, 2400 is not a Hogden product. But if we could get somebody on from Alliant, they could actually corroborate my little story about the package of unique powder that they had that was made back in the 1800s that is being stored in water, being kept underwater, and it's still quite viable after they dry the powder out.
That's what you used to do back in your sailing days when you took on too much water, right? You just dried the powder out and reused it, right? It's all
Well,
good.
you guys are really trying to put Hookem to work this week, aren't you?
Come on, cuss me out.
Nah, I think too much of you to cuss you this week, Jason. Too little of you, I'm not sure which.
I enjoyed seeing Hookem defend me against you and Phil. That was funny.
Yeah, like you need defending.
See, it's not exactly like I went in on you all the way, Jason. I was just trying to keep Hookem balanced.
Let's all bash Hookem. Let's all bash Hookem. He's not even in the chat, so he can't defend himself.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
Yeah, but he's y'all's editor, so he can make all kinds of funny things happen by the time this posts.
Okay.
I like old Hookem. I don't know why you guys hate him.
Oh, look, I love Mark to death. He's a wonderful funny. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to give him hell every now and then.
Just keep him on his toes. That's all.
That's right.
Are we running out of things to talk about, or should we do the next?
No, I was looking for something. So, no, that's still nothing for 2400. So,
I'm
interesting.
sure we'd have a variety of answers for number 4 if we decide to jump that one off.
So,
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just looking at the Lee reloading manual, the first edition. To give you an idea of how old it is, it listed as Hercules 2400. They listed for a 240 and a 265, but not a 250. So the 240 is 18.6 and 26. And then the 265 is 15.4 and 17. So that's interesting.
Did you say 26 grains of 2400 under a 240 gram bullet?
No, I didn't say 26. 20.6.
Okay.
20. You said 26, inferring the point, but you didn't say the point. Okay.
No, I did. It probably just was roboting. So them downloading something at the same time. So it probably roboted.
And that's why we look up our recipes instead of just listening to what we do, because anything
Yes.
can happen.
No, I was laughing because next week's show is going to be a Jason monologue.
Probably.
Right on, Mark.
Exactly. Jason Rex wants to know, is everything lead free in California or just for hunting?
Just for hunting right now. But it will be totally lead free because that's the way California does things.
Yeah.
Speaking of lead free, there was a suggestion made by our good friend Swampy about making your own lead free bullets. You pack sand into a jacket, and you take and press another jacket down in the mouth, the bottom end up, and you actually have a explosive bullet, very lightweight, and it is totally lead free.
I think somebody else in the same chat suggested using lead, or not lead, zinc, which he seemed to think was at least a worthwhile idea to investigate.
Zinc is pretty hard compared to lead or even copper jackets. It's not very ductile to swage or work, it's because the melting point is a bit higher than lead.
It's lighter too, right, Jim?
Yes, sir. Much less dense.
Yeah, but wouldn't that give me something to do with all that zinc wheel weights that I have laying around?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hey, honestly, if you go to Elvis Ammo's YouTube channel, he did a whole episode where he melted down zinc and shot zinc bullets. It was pretty interesting.
Very interesting.
I have a friend who is a hunter, and he's using a lot of the barns right now. He's a new reloader, but those lightweight, long bullets kind of frustrate him some days. He has a hard time getting his head wrapped around that.
Jason, in California, can't you just tell the game warden or whoever that your lead bullets identify as copper? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. Still going to jail.
That is comedy. So yeah, I'm just kind of wandering through some stuff that I have to see if I come up with any different information on that question, which I haven't. So, but all right, folks. Last question for the night. Raymond posted, I was wondering if anybody knows how to figure out my proper bullet seating depth for my bolt gun, 308 Win. I know what my book says for COL, but I've heard of people figuring out a way that is rifle specific. Raymond, how much time do you want to spend on this?
This could be a month worth of episodes.
No, it could be a lifetime.
Yep. That's the first question, is how much time do you want to spend on this? The second question, are you going to single load this thing or are you going to use the magazine whether that's internal, external box, or whatever the case may be. Those are the two questions you need to ask yourself. How much time do you want to spend on this? And are you going to single load it? If you're going to single load it, then you can have a whole ton of fun. And you can spend lots and lots and lots and lots of hours adjusting your bullet seating depth until you find one that hits the sweet spot. Basically, you can use Dan Newberry's OCW, or you can use a ladder load just for seating depth. So once you figure out your powder charge that you like, you can now spend a crap ton more time making sure you meticulously trim every single cartridge or every single piece of brass to make sure it is exactly the same length, and make sure you're seating your bullet to the millimeter. And then you're just going to keep playing with it. So depends on how much time you want to spend. You can spend a heck of a lot of time.
You know, it sounds like Mike is being sarcastic. He's not. He's being quite sincere. We have been over this ad nauseum times. This is a rabbit hole that ends up in a black hole out there in space somewhere. You can vary it by a tenth of a thousandth.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when you've got as much as 60 thousandths between COAL, what the book says, and you've got 100 thousandths lead, you know, that's 1,600 different increments you could actually set your bullet at. And I'm talking about measuring from the ogive, like Travis said earlier, not from the bullet tip. It's a waste of time to measure from the bullet tip. I finally realized that. I mean, you think about it, like Mike said, loading from a magazine. All right, are you going to use a Spitzer bullet or a round nose? If you're going to load from a box magazine on a Remington 700 BDL, all right, well, remember that rifle is going to recoil, and the bullets will probably sit still, and the front of the magazine is going to deform your bullet nose if you're using a nice, well-shaped Spitzer. But, you know, that changes your bullet flight, bullet path, a whole 9 yards there. Just recoil alone when you let your bullets, load your bullets in that magazine a tad bit too long.
Here's a question that might actually sound like a sidebar. In y'all's experience, have y'all ever dealt with, say, a particular rifle, particular combination that really didn't seem to care what length you loaded it at? Like it didn't seem to have any dramatic effect on accuracy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was just me, but I played with overall length on my 308 with Sierra Match Kings, 168 grains. And I mean, I found a powder charge that turns that rifle into a half MOA rifle, but nothing I did OAL seemed to impress the rifle. It shot the same. It shot the same from 2.8 inches at the book all the way out to, I think, within 10 thousandths of the rifling. Never changed.
Okay.
Shocked me because everybody always told me, oh, well, if you do this, that, and the other, it'll tighten up even more. But I tried it. I burned up a lot of Sierra Match Kings trying it. It didn't work. Didn't do anything for me, but I've heard it work for other people.
What sort of rifle were you using, Phil?
I was using my Ruger M77.
Fine rifle.
Yeah. The only problem with that one in particular is it's controlled feed. So it really doesn't tolerate single loading very well, which was fine. I mean, I've got plenty of room in the magazine to play with it. But the point is, at least in my experience, it didn't make a difference. In other rifles, it does.
Jim, what did you say that mold number was?
429, 421.
Okay. So I found load data from Lyman on that. And for 2400, they say 19.4 to 23.4.
That's where I got my data.
If it's linotype. So with a 1.710 OAL.
Jim, that
Sir.
mold number is for 245 grain.
Yeah.
250, 240, 245.
Yeah.
Well, it was the Key semi-wide cutter. It's 420. I know that the number is 429, 421 on the side of the mold.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a 245 grain.
Okay. For that, Lyman Cast has 20.6 as a max, which you already said, Mike.
Well, I found what edition is this? Edition 3. So I'm sure you're probably looking at the 5th edition. Okay.
Didn't you just say, Mike, 23.4 grains?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm looking at 4th.
4th? Okay, so they dropped the load in the 4th. And then if you go with the shorter OAL with a 429 244 mold, then it is a max of 22.2. I don't know what it is in the 4th. So it just kind of shows you that people love to change their sorry. Excuse me. People love to change the levels at which they do the powder charge as they go along. Part of that's powder increases, part of that's lawyerisms, you know. So
It is possible the recipe I got came from the Ruger section only of my Lyman book. I have completely forgotten how I came about it. I just know it came from my Lyman book. Lyman used to publish a Ruger section only, or loads for Rugers only, or something like that, because Ruger builds such a good, strong gun.
yeah. Yep. Left they definitely do. So. All right. So anybody got any shout outs or anything?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
Russell Rusty Frederick. Ooh, somebody just crackled badly.
Yeah, I bumped the cord.
Anyway, buddy, thanks for the posting on my timeline. Appreciate what you said about the Cartridge Corner last week. He really, really, really enjoyed Travis's suggestion of 50 caliber Modus, as affectionately known by a lot of people in the military. I think even Phil's benefited a time or two from the Modus's protection.
It's definitely put a smile on my face, let me tell you that.
Close to getting your cookies off, too. Modus.
Put lead in your pencil.
God love her. That lady that loves to protect her GIs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys. Well, I think this is a good time to do another giveaway.
What are you giving away, Travis?
So this one here.
We're not doing the
Announcing.
drawing now. We're
Announcing, yes. We still got someone. I think Mike's going to do a drawing soon for the last week's. But
Yeah.
right now, this is going to be for anybody out there that has a RCBS Summit press. And this is, again, from Penn. And it's a little spent primer shoot. I will even go pick up some tubing for you so you can, hook the tubing in. So RCBS Summit Press. We also have, if you have an AR-15, he's got these little pin set right there that gets rid of the roll pins for your trigger guard and replaces it with these little brass knurled bushings and some screws. And then we'll give away another 500 count of 9mm brass from Freedom Seed Brass.
Nice.
So go over to reloadingpodcast@gmail.com. Put in there giveaways. Remember, RCBS Summit Press.
What do those presses run, Travis?
I don't know.
Someone say
I can look real quick. I think
Maybe
they're
I-
sub 200.
Maybe I should buy one so I can enter the drawing.
That makes about as much sense as you usually do, Travis or Jason.
Yeah, they're $200.
200. That's not terrible. I might
Amazon Prime 209. That's nothing for you, right, Jason?
Yep.
Get me one while you're over there, okay?
All right, you got it.
So the way these drawings work, is we announce it for everybody that's live. They get the initial announcement. Then I will go through, pull all the names in the spreadsheet. It will, because this does not post until Sunday night. So example, right now it's the 25th, 8:31 p.m. This show won't post if everything goes properly and we get a chance to get it done correctly. It will post on September 30th. So then the following Friday, which will be October 5th, so it won't actually be the 5th, because if I do a drawing on my wedding anniversary, my wife will shoot me. So we will probably do it on the 6th or maybe the 7th. Probably the 7th. So we will do the drawing at 6 p.m. So basically it's essentially a week and a half after the live show. So that's kind of how that works. So that way the podcast listeners get a chance to enter. Patreons automatically get entered. And we're working on a bonus program for the Patreons, so they might get more entries, but we haven't really fully discussed that. So, but just kind of let the Patreons know that yes, there will be a benefit in all the drawings for all of you who are sponsoring us with your money. So,
Yes, I know all the Patreons, you guys will not be disappointed in what you guys are going to be able to get a chance at winning. But another important thing that I need you guys to do is, even if you don't buy anything, if you could please go over to these companies that have given us stuff to give away to you listeners, please just go over there and just leave them a message, send them an email, and just tell them thank you for supporting us.
Yep. Thank you for supporting Reloading Podcast. You're damn right.
Most of these guys that I've been talking to, they are reloaders just like us, or they've at least started out as reloaders just like us. Most of these guys are small companies. They love reloading, and that's where they've built their business around the love of reloading.
yeah, definitely. A lot of them definitely get into it that way. So, want to make sure we thank them.
Yeah, and I know it's been heavily entirely Crimson oriented lately, but that's because he just gave me so much stuff to give away. And it's all I've been super impressed with the quality of everything I've seen of his. So like I say, please go over there and at least just tell him thank you.
Indeed.
Jason, have you tried out the rest of that stuff that you hooked up onto your
Get off
650?
my ass, Travis. No.
So you haven't done any reloading for what, 3 weeks?
I don't know, a year maybe. Busy. I finally got my range truck fixed so I can drive to the range again.
Well, that's considered reloading information.
That's something, yeah.
Your range truck, as in, what do you have, a special vehicle just for the range?
Well, because I'm a commercial painter, Jim,
Yes, sir.
I'm loaded with equipment and paint.
Of course.
I don't use that for my own personal use. It's just for work. So I have my own vehicle for my personal use.
Of course.
And I just call it my range truck because it usually has brass laying in it and my box of goodies in the back. And so when I go to the range, I just throw my rifle and my spotting scope in it, and I go. Everything else is in it.
Okay.
And it just got a $700 pair of shoes on it, so it's all.
Oh yeah. If you got 4 tires for $700, you did well.
Yeah, they ain't cheap anymore, are they?
No, they're not.
Back in your day, they were like $10 a piece, right?
Tell that to the guy that busted his rim on a washout in that direction earlier last week.
No fun.
Back in his day, the dinosaurs hadn't turned into oil to make the tires.
They were still
Hey,
square.
Did any of you guys listen to the SX3 podcast?
I'm a couple weeks behind.
Do you guys follow Staley Shooting Supply on Facebook?
Yep.
Yeah.
Man, did you see the blowout sale they had on some ARs the other day?
Yep. I was trying to debate on how much my wife would kill me if I actually put one on the credit card.
Yep. Yeah, I messaged her and I was trying to be an adult, I guess, and I restrained from picking one up. But you guys got to follow Staley Shooting Supply on Facebook because every once in a while, I mean, I don't even want to say the price of some of this stuff, but it was unbelievable.
Let's just put it this way. There was a couple that were cheaper than the ATIs that you see.
Well, there's a couple that I priced out. You couldn't build one for what she was selling them for.
No. And these aren't cheap parts that they build them with. So we were one of the things we were kind of going to talk about, and we kind of blew off, unfortunately, when we got talking, is that we're going to talk about pressure signs, and I was going to roll that in when Phil was talking about his experience and kind of the things you can kind of look for when you're making a load, but we didn't. So we will do that next week. For now, we have gone a bit longer than we normally typically do, so. Rusty, because you buy mud tires, it doesn't count. Anyway, he said his tires are $700 each for his Jeep. So buy good mud tires, it'll cost you a bunch of money. Anyway, I want to thank everybody that sends us emails, sends us texts, calls, and leaves us voicemails. That just swings by and hits up the affiliate links, firearmsradio.tv. There's a affiliate link for Brownells and for Amazon. Greatly appreciate that. Great appreciate everybody that tunes in live, everybody that comments on our posts, everybody that is a member of the Reloading Podcast group, everybody that spends time on the page, everybody that's a member of the Reloading Room. If you've got questions you want on the show, post them on the Reloading Podcast page. If you have questions you need answered, go to the Reloading Room. The Reloading Room, you can search all of the postings without actually becoming a member, and you can read whatever's been posted. So both are troll free zones. Both are family friendly. So just thank everybody that tunes in. Thanks to the Patreons. If you become a Patreon, we do have a Patreon Facebook group. It's kind of still every once in a while hit and miss, but that one doesn't seem to have so many rules. Anyway, we also have a Reloading Podcast page on Gun Groupie, so stop by and check that out. And just remember, folks, keep your brass shiny.
Keep your powder dry.
It's not a matter of if, but when.
Buy it cheap and stack it deep.
Squeeze. Don't yank that trigger.
Squeeze it.
That's the Charmin you've been